Hi, this is Ed Sowell, and I would like to tell you a little bit about this video that you're about to watch. Uh, this was taken from a cassette, I'll show you here, that was sent to us by my dad, Pleeman Jackson Sowell, in January, February of 1981. He was in his declining years. He died later that year. And at this point, he had recently returned from the hospital, and he had lost some of his ability with the pen and paper, and decided to start using a cassette recorder to communicate with the California Sowells, myself and my wife Judy, and our two children, Janet and Elizabeth. So the video was transferred to a CD by our son-in-law, Bill Scott, Janet's husband, and then I used a software tool that I had to convert it to this MP3 format. I hope you enjoy it. Be sure to listen to the whole thing. It has lots of family news at the time, which was music to our ears, perhaps not so to yours, but you might in particular enjoy his reading of The Country Fiddler and the Book Agent. It's very well done and dramatic, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Oh, and by the way, it's mostly Dad talking, but right at the very end, he manages to get Mom to say a few words into it. She had just returned home from church. So enjoy.
Ed wanted me to go to Phoenix on the first Easter that I knew him because he wanted me to meet his parents. But I couldn't travel with him at that time because it just wasn't allowed. So I went with a friend ahead of time and stayed at her house. And then Ed's brothers picked me up and brought me to meet his dad and his mom. Well, Jack met me at the door and he said, "You know, Ed's going to marry you." I said, "I wish I knew that for sure." And he said, "Well, he's going to give you a ring and he's going to marry you." And I said, "Oh my goodness." And I said, since he did, later I thought he was just clairvoyant. Then I also remember how much they loved me. It was an unconditional kind of love that they only gave their daughter Polly, and I felt like a daughter to them, and that's very unusual for a daughter-in-law. So those are really fond memories, and that's...
Testing, 1, 2, 3, 4. Dear Ed and Judy and everybody over there, after talking to you this morning, I concluded I better write this letter on tape so I can get it to you and see if you can make heads or tails of it. Everything seems to be going as well as could be expected here. Thad and Betty took a little trip yesterday and went down to Cholla to look around. Came back and said the fish were jumping out of the water down there, but he didn't have a fishing pole with him. And he brought me a big old rusty nail that he found on the beach. It was a bridge nail, and it was 10 inches long. It was all rusty. I don't know how it ever got there, but that was it. And anyway, they've kind of improving things around Rocky Point, but I haven't been down there for several years, so I don't know much about it anymore. Well, I'm glad you got the Jaguar. That sounded like a good automobile, and you always did kind of lean toward things like that, and I hope along with you that it works out good. And I guess Janet is having a lot of fun with the little Hornet. And she goes on, just tell her to be careful, like that's all I can ever say, is just be careful. Now I'm going to tell you this this skit that I told you about about the old country fiddler and the book agent. So here's going to come up next. The old country fiddler and the book agent. One day last spring I was a-setting on my porch a-fiddling away when I see a feller coming down the path that I took to be a book agent with a 4-pound volume of literature under his arm. He was a kind of a spindling, sickly-looking chap with a green hat pulled clean down to the tops of his ears and a suit of store clothes on, and didn't look as if he had sense enough to sell peanuts to a boy. But he stepped up as pert as a rooster and says, "Good morning, Reuben. I've got a book here on raising calves I thought you'd like to look at." "Well," I says, "if you've got a book on raising calves, you'd ought to make a present of it to your parents. It'd be profitable reading for 'em." It warn't no use. He couldn't see the point. The name of this book was Carter's Complete and Comprehensive Compendium of Indispensable Information. And beside the pieces on raising calves, it told what to do first after you get drownded or lose your pocket knife, and most anything anybody would want to know. But I didn't hanker for all that information just that minute, so I sent him down to Cy. Now, the price of this book was $4, so Cy gave him 2 bushels of potatoes at $2 a bushel. The fellow borrowed a wheelbarrow and walked and wheeled him 2 miles down to the store and offered to sell them to Hawkins. Hawkins said, "Well, potatoes is worth just exactly 40 cents a bushel." The feller got mad then and went off and left him a-setting on the porch steps and ain't been heard from since. Everybody's okay over here. Polly's working hard as usual, and I think she's got to go to San Francisco again in a couple of weeks for a weekend or some kind of something they're going to have up there. I don't know what. And Tom is working every day and he likes his job. Seems to be getting along good on it. And Jackie has been on a vacation, but he didn't go anywhere. He stayed home and worked on his house. And Janet is still on the sick list, but she's working. She works a few hours a day, and on the days that she feels like it, and some days when she feels like it, she brings a little bit of work home with her to keep caught up. But the doctor tells her not to overdo herself and to stop it the minute it seems like it's getting too much. So she seems to be doing all right with it. So after that little interlude of music there's not much more to say. If I was Bing Crosby, I would sing some for you myself, but I'm not, so there you are. Now, when Mama comes back from church, I'll have her say a couple of words, and then we'll send this thing to you, huh? Okay, Mama will be back after a while. It's about 9:30 now, 9 o'clock now, and she'll be back after a little bit. So I'll sign off now and see you later. All this is taped on side number 1. I left the opposite side blank. I guess I might as well talk some more if you hadn't come back yet. I've started my hydroponic garden thing again, and it seems to be doing fairly good, but hasn't been there long enough yet to really tell much about it. I haven't got much, just a couple of tomatoes and a couple of peppers, but I want to see how it's going to go. Our grape arbor is going crazy out there. The grapevine are climbing all over the place, and the garden underneath is doing pretty well. We planted a bunch of stuff here the other day, and it all turns out all right. It's coming up at least. So maybe a little bit later on we'll have something to eat again. But we sure do enjoy the stuff we get out of our garden. It just seems so nice and fresh. And this summer again we had volunteer cantaloupes. Had about 10 or 12 nice cantaloupes that just come up from volunteers, and we had cantaloupes around here when they were selling for 60 cents a piece down in the stores. So that was pretty handy to have. And the rest of the place, Thad keeps it up pretty well. He does a lot of lawn mowing and watering, and it's a nice garden and a nice lawn. and we're kind of disappointed about our front lawn because it's got so many different kinds of grass in it, but anyway, it looks better than nothing. So now I'll sign off again and wait for Mama.
Hi, I just got home from church and Jack said that you were sitting, Jack said you were sitting there waiting for me. It's still pretty hot and I'm just busy all the time with one thing or another, and I'm glad that Jack is feeling better and that he's home from the hospital. He sure has got a lot to talk to here to keep him busy. He's more used to talking to this thing than I am, so I guess I'll hang up.
Okay. So that's it for now, I guess, and I'll get this thing ready and mail it, and hope you get it all right. And write and let me know what you think of it. Bye-bye.